One of the things that I would love is for you guys to just tell everybody and all of us a little bit about yourself and that space that you've cultivated.
We've been together for 15 years. We have 4 amazing children who literally teach us every day. We both say when we grow up, we want to be just like them because they are so connected to their voices, and they come and they are teaching us how it is to remember who we are, that we don't come to this life broken, that we actually all come with a unique set of gifts, that we all come with a gift to give to other people. And they remind us that. And Shade is a magical place. Todd has created it over an 8-year period. It's surrounded by plants, so it's a nursery. And it has been a nursery for 50 years. In fact, before we took over the property, I think it was a pumpkin patch for like 50 years. And even now people will come up to us and be like, I remember coming and going on the pumpkin rides here. And we wanted to keep that community aspect to it and that nurturing energy. I come from England, and when you go to a nursery space out there, it's not just to go and buy a plant and leave. You take your children, you go feed the ducks, you spend a day just connecting with nature, relaxing your nervous system, and just being. And we wanted to bring a little bit of that European or that more global energy into Utah, into the nursery space here in America. And if you are not even in your body, if you're not even in any present moment at all, and you're just in the to-do list mode and the get it done mode, you don't have an experience at all. When we had the space and it was a nursery space, I remember standing in the greenhouse and I had an actual vision. I saw the space and it was filled with like 100 people dressed in white. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna die here. I was at first kind of concerned. I was like, Todd, I think I die here and you're gonna bury me here because I went to heaven and this was a terrible mistake and we should probably moonwalk our way slowly back out of this investment. But a few years into having the space, and we started bringing wellness into it. We started bringing these wellness classes. I remember we had our first big womb work event, and we had 111 women there, and they all came dressed in white. And I remember standing up on the stage, and I was at the same place that I'd looked out when I had this vision, and I realized that I was being guided, that I had the support of this man who said, you know what, I believe in you and I trust you. And even when I didn't believe in myself or trust myself, I went with that vision and I looked at these 111 women and I watched not just the healing that they were doing for themselves, but this amazing ripple effect that would go out for not only generations behind them, but the generations that were to come.
One of the first things that sticks out to me just about the amazingness of your relationship is actually something that Jason says a little bit. And when he chooses to show up for someone, when something is happening, he says,
I'm an ally to the strength of you, not an accomplice to a part of you, right? This is both in terms of all the parts of you, an ally to all the parts, right? Coherent whole, and you over time. Right, so you like tomorrow and in a week, right? Like you are in relationship to a person across all of those dimensions. And so if you can integrate yourself there, then you can engage with someone there. Is that what you're speaking into?
Yes, and now one of the things that I love that I think is really crucial in relationship about that is that sometimes when we're in a relationship with someone or in a relationship with each other, we are human. We sometimes get to points where I do something that really hurts you, right? And having another human that is there that says, you know what? I know Shona through time, and I understand that this moment that is striking through my heart right now is not you, and I'm gonna choose to show up for Shona through time. And when we choose to be in spaces where we're able to hold space for our people, despite what our experience is, it makes all the difference. Because when you show up for me, when I'm most vulnerable, when you show up for me, as you know, I'm a what's the word? I push people away.
Avoidant.
I'm an avoidant, you know? So when there's conflict, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm out. I'm out. And it's amazing and has been beautiful in those spaces where the humans that really care about me, when I have betrayed myself, where they were like, no, where I'm like, oh no, I should have not done that and you should not be around me. They put their arms around me in those moments and like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here, and I'm going to walk through this with you, and we're going to get to the other side together. And then 3 weeks later, about 3 weeks to go, just by the way, that was fucked up what you did. Holding each other accountable as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's one of the things, right? Like when, I loved how literally that's what you did. Like you chose to be an ally of the vision through time, and that's what you spoke to. You know, we were like, he showed up, and then I saw this becoming, and you know, like this thing come to place and come together.
One of the things that Lorado touched on, I think, is vital, actually. You mentioned that even at times when you may not have felt like you could believe in you saw that your partner believed in you. I think one of the things that allowed you to believe that is that you felt a confidence that he truly saw you, like all parts of you, right? If there was one part of you that was rough, that was whatever, and you felt like he didn't see it, and it's like, oh, like that's being denied, you couldn't trust the other part of him that sees the brilliance of you.
We're all firm believers that generational trauma can be passed on, but I believe that if that's the case, then generational healing can also be passed on.
Absolutely.
And so I have mothers and daughters, I have sisters, I have friends come together, and they sometimes don't even have words to put to their pain and their suffering. Sometimes their pain and suffering happened before they even had language to explain what it was, but the body remembers, and it's trapped in their nervous systems, and they want connection, they want belonging, they want to feel joy, they want to exist in a certain way, but they feel that that's out of reach for them, and they don't quite know why. And so when they come into these states, until they come into a place where they feel completely safe, and safety is huge. Safety is something that is completely underestimated. A lot of people come in and they don't even know what it's like to feel safe inside their bodies. And so what we really tried to do was to create a space where when they walked in, they could genuinely feel safe. They could feel that authenticity was what we wanted from them. Like, you don't have to perform, you don't have to be anything, you don't have to hide parts of yourself, because I just want to see you as you are, and that's okay, and that's enough. And I feel like he's particularly good at that. He loves to go so deep with people. Like, I don't think this man knows how to have a frivolous conversation. It would be really ideal for me if he could, because I could get out of places so much faster, but he cannot. He will sit and he speaks and he gets to the core of like, who are you? And like, tell me your story. And he wants to know so genuinely because he cares. And that isn't something that I think that you can fake. Like, it's just who he is. And in business, I think you try to lean a lot into like, well, I have to go and make money and do all these things, but like, that's just not who he was. And so he would just sit with these people. And the amazing thing is, I think that is what has made you so successful, is that...
That's a value differentiator.
Yes,
right?
These people continue to come back to him because he sees them. He sees them and accepts them, and they're able to be vulnerable and open. Which is how you got me. Like, I was the hardest shell of all, like cracking me open. I was an avoider at all. Like, I have saved the day energy all day. If you need my help, I will come. I will save your life. If you ask me how I feel, the conversation is over. And we're done. It used to be. I have changed this now, but it used to be that I did not want to do that, because I equated vulnerability and emotion with weakness. I had two very strong parents in my life, and one was very, very angry and aggressive and productive, and one was very sad and broken, and I equated that to death. And so I had these two very clear options in front of me, and to me, the one that was angry and got things done was so much better than the one that was showing all this emotion and weakness and vulnerability. And so I shut that part of myself down. And he cracked it open, because that's just what he does.
What a trust fall into being seen and being accepted.
A marriage is like, it's a complicated experience, because you're not, you talked about like seeing her. Well, I didn't always see her, because I think, to me, just growing up, like, I think I was obsessed with romantic comedies. And so like I would watch these things and be like, ooh. And I remember like patterning these things. And I think I created patterns of romantic comedies, which is like the guy finds this girl, she's usually with someone else, he wins her over, and then he does something really shitty. and he's got to win her back again. And so it's just like this like tumultuous relationship. And I think I wired that into my system, that was kind of natural, that like shitty stuff has to happen. And so I think that's kind of how we started the beginning of our marriage, was just like constantly, and she's loud and angry, and she's totally fine to be loud and angry. And so we kept meeting these moments that just like would be explosive. And I think my understanding of what love was at that point, and I think both of us said it to each other, you know, which was like, you love someone because of what they do for you. And that was kind of how we started our marriage, was, okay, what do you do for me? What do you provide that makes it worth me being with you? And I think one of the things that shifted for us, like late into our marriage, I mean, probably, 10 years into our marriage, which was like, do we still believe that story? Do we still believe that it's what you do for me? And what I found for me, for her, was like, what I love is her, watching her just express herself into the world. That's what I love. I don't love what she does for me, because that's not for me. She's just expressing herself as she walks, as she plays, as she moves, as she dances, as she communicates with other people. She's just vibrating just this amazing way of living. And that's what I actually love. I don't love what she does for me. I love what she does for her, and how she shows up in the world. And so that allowed me to have confidence in her, because now I'm not seeing, that's not for me. Her going and doing that at the nursery wasn't for me, but it was her expressing herself to the world. And that's why I'm able to stand by her. But I wasn't always able to do that. I mean, and that was really hard to break that old like belief that what does she do for me? Because in that space, it was always like, well, is she doing enough? Is she doing enough? And there was this tally taking of like, am I doing more than her? Is she doing more than me? And always trying to make sure I was doing more, so I could like prove that you should love me more than I love you, because I'm doing more, damn it. But shifting that, it put my nervous system at ease, because I was like, I don't have to keep score anymore. Like, there's nothing to keep score of, and I just get to witness this beautiful, amazing human being that's just freaking amazing to me, and I just get to watch it, and I don't have to worry about what she's doing for me. It's just like, I love seeing her operate in the world.
It sounds like at the beginning of your relationship, which 15 years ago, right? Yeah. That there was more of a paradigm, an operating paradigm in relationship of like, what does the other do for me, and what am I doing for the other? And that over time, what you came to find is that that the richer, that the better experience, the evolution of it, went from what does this person do for me to who is this person to me? Like, who is this person to me or for my life? And then it evolves into who is this person for them? Who is this person for the world, right? And being able to be in relationship with them in their sovereign being.
And it had to be a conscious shift. Like, you don't just go from you're in your own bubble and you're in your own world, and you're really trying to displace your own pain, your own lack of, it's a lack. But if you shift into a state of love, and Todd has been such an example of love to me, because I didn't grow up with great examples of love. I had pretty hard upbringing with a lot of abuse. I was homeless at one point. People look at me and they don't recognize kind of the story that I took because of that hard shell that I put out. But there was a very conscious time where we shifted from this place of lack, of like, what can I get, to I suddenly felt so full of love that I could just open my eyes and look at this other person with curiosity. Like, what are you going to do next? Like, we've been married for 15 years, we've been together for 18 years now, and I still don't know what he's going to do every day. Like, there is such an element of like curiosity and just witnessing somebody else through life. And we take such joy in that. Like, we will talk until the sun came up if we didn't have children and I'd have to get up with them. Like, because we are so curious about I don't want to assume what he thinks the world is like. I don't want to assume what he thinks or how he's going to behave. I like to just watch and witness that, and he does that to me, and it allows us the freedom to be these sovereign beings who get to just enjoy each other instead of trying to control and avoid and minimize.
I think the hard part of that too is like believing that person will witness it and sit through it. You talked about how you get to show all those sides of yourself, and I think both of us, I don't want to speak for her, but like definitely me, was, I grew up in an environment that I trained myself to hide everything. I was like, I'm gonna lie. I'm really good at lying. It's great. But I would lie, and I would just like only show this part of me that you were going to be pleased with, you know. And I remember reading like How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was in my 20s and just being like, okay, I'm just going to craft this perfect human being that everyone's going to love, you know. And instead of really like seeing like, who do I want to be? Who am I? It's more of how can I please everybody in the world? And it left me not existing at all. It was just this crafted human being that I was like, how do I please you? Okay, now I got to shift to how do I make you happy? And just very much a people pleaser. And so in our relationship, the way that that showed up was just, there was no one there for her to even love, because I'm just constantly only showing what's going to please her rather than the real versions of me. And so it was a real hard moment to start to trust that she'll like all the parts of me. And so going through that process was crazy too, because I never knew if she loved me. I was always in question because I never showed her me. I only showed her the parts that I thought she'd like. And so I always questioned if she loved me. I was constantly worried, is she going to cheat on me? Is she going to find somebody else? She's an actress. She's beautiful. She's all these things that I think are amazing. And what does that mean? It's going to be so painful and all the experience that I might go through. So no, and I built it up as this big, huge thing to cause me to survive in a way that was like, hey, I can't be a human. I have to be this perfect thing. And that created so much pain in me, and I just hated it. It sucked. It was just this miserable experience. And even though I was with her, it was still like, still want her, but I felt so much pain in that experience because I didn't exist. It was just this perfect version of me that I thought she'd like. And that was a really just dark experience. And she, I think in turn, just didn't know what she could trust because I would only show her a side of me. But going through that, you know, the moment that like I was allowed to shift from that was just, I got so sick of myself that I was just like, this can't continue. And I really had to get to a place where I loved myself enough to say, hey, I'm gonna show up exactly as it is, the dirty, the good, the clean, all of that. And if she doesn't want me, I still believe that I'm worth loving enough to let that go if that's the case. But it really was a difficult like decision that I was like, okay, I'm willing to lose this person to show up as myself. And what was amazing and what was like that leap of faith was just like every time I exposed something, she just kept being there, kept being there, kept being there. And I was just like, who is this person, you know? And it made me fall more in love with her, right? And in turn, I think she fell more in love with me, but it was just, I never...
She was able to see you.
Yeah.
And as you opened up, and that's a fundamental act of courage, by the way, you rewarded that. And it gave you someone to love, to see. And like, so that's how you allow the space for the person to open up, that same principle of cultivation, creating the space to be.
Because I would feel more safe, because certainly, I mean, we all have intuition, right? It's within us. And sometimes we have a conversation with someone and they're saying all the right words and they're doing all the right things.
Wrong.
And you are just like, what is
is
happening?
it?
What is this? And unfortunately, so many things in our conditioning in life, whether it's religion, whether it's our parenting or whatever, tell us to sever that connection that we have with our intuition. It says, shove that voice down, ignore that voice down, and just stick in that headspace. And you can will something to be the right way, or you can almost have the disbelief, and that will be fine. But what was happening was he was hiding all of these parts from me that he didn't think that I would accept. But I knew that they existed.
You could feel it.
They were there, and I loved them. I just wanted to see them because I wanted the honesty. I wanted the fully expressed version of him in his most authentic vibration. Like, that is what I wanted. And I didn't know how to say that because I didn't have the words, I didn't have the language. But we would have I would just say, I don't trust, I feel afraid. I feel so afraid because you keep showing up in this not fully shown way. And so when he would show these parts of me that he thought I'd be like, oh, well then, you know, I loved him so much more because I just wanted that intimacy, that into me you see, the allowing of me to him to show me who he was, and that's all I wanted. We just didn't know how to get it because we didn't have the language, so we had to struggle through that for a long time.
I love that so much because, first of all, like my theory is, I say, like in relationship, when you are in relationship with someone, everything that is you and everything that is you and everything that is curated by you is in the box. Whether I can see it or not, it's in the box. Our being, we have different senses and we have different ways of communication. It's not just here. Our being knows these things in the box. And when we are vulnerable and we come out and we share the things that we think are in the dark, all we're doing is shedding light in the box, and it makes everybody else in the box more comfortable. And everybody knows, so we already know that these things are there. By putting them out there, what we're doing is creating a safe space, so everybody knows, oh wait, I can't move, there's a couch here. Yeah. We are in this wonderful, beautiful society, and as a unit and as a whole, we're going through a wonderful but sad pandemic that has taught us to be in a way that keeps spreading the disease. And quite honestly, it's when we choose to show up in our vulnerability and first we connect with ourselves and see ourselves, that we are able to create the connections here. Our hearts carry more neurons than our brains do. And neurons, like, that's how we share messaging with ourselves, right? When we are severed, when we're disconnected, when we're not feeling emotions, the connections are not happening. But what we don't understand is that also at the end of the day, those neurons don't just connect here. The messaging doesn't just go here. Our bodies are created to be able to, without saying a word, send messages this way. So when I'm sitting in a room and I'm saying one thing, but this is sending something else, all it's doing is creating like disjointment in there and breaking the relationship. And it's a thing that at the end of the day, most of the time, we walk in, and a thing that I believe breaks our relationships. It's not, most people don't leave each other because he cheated or because she did whatever. Most of the time, it's these little things that etched away at those neurological connections between us where it's not happening anymore.
Eye-gazing is such a beautiful example of that. Like, you talked about walking into this room of strangers and being like, and I'm standing with someone I never would have picked out, and I'm looking into that person's eye. And a big part of that practice is getting you out of your head and into your heart space. And when you are in your heart space, your intuition is up, your chemicals are going, and you're able to actually allow yourself to be seen, which is very, very scary, but you have to shift into a place of safety in order to let somebody see you. And when I said people don't even know what it's like to be safe, we asked them, just imagine you felt safe in your body just for a moment. And suddenly you're now connecting on a heart-to-heart connection with a complete stranger. And how did you feel about that person? When you looked at that person, you love these people.
So much love for
you love a
strangers,
total stranger.
right?
And that is so powerful, because we asked them to remember, like, if you can feel this love for a complete stranger, how can you not feel this for your partner, for your child, for yourself? And it's getting into that heart space that's the key to it, is to get out of the head, get out of all the stories and the thoughts, get into a space of safety and open up the heart. So many people ask us, how do you, like, if you had to say one thing, like, how do I fix my partner? How to get my husband to be more like your husband, is what they'll literally say to me. You work on yourself. Like, you can't do anything with your partner. You can't do anything for this person other than love them and be honest with them and support them. But you have, if you want anything to change, nothing changes if nothing changes, so change yourself.
And by coming at it from that paradigm of like, our relationship is predicated on what you do for me, you disallow them from stepping into who they actually are, right? You perpetuate, you propagate this curation of a self. It's like, just some version of me hopefully can be worth loving, can be enough. And that will never work, right? There was an act of courage that was made over time, and more than just in one instance, which was, I'm willing to risk this fear that I have that if you see me as I truly am, that you will leave me. I'm willing to risk that relationship with you so that I can have a relationship with me. Because there is no relationship between us if I don't have a relationship with me, if I don't let you see me, if I'm not actually me, you will only ever know a mask, and we will be limited in our connection. Like Lorado, you spoke to, it's like, so many of these things that happen, how much of it is like, oh, we've become disconnected to the point where we're glorified roommates. We don't know each other. We don't see each other. And in that not seeing each other, not being connected, we drift. And it sounds like you have intentionally leaned into, you've explored, and you have cultivated by practice, not just something that arises without work. You've practiced the things that allow for you to feel safe, to be seen, to feel into yourself, and to do that with each other.
We had to get an awareness of it, because at first you don't know what it is. You're like, why do we feel distant? Like, what is this? And so all the things that we did, a lot of it was getting the awareness of what was going on and then making the choice, do we want to shift this? Or do we want to stay in the current path that we're on? Because the current path is taking us apart. But if we have the awareness of what it is, and it's going to be uncomfortable to shift it, it's going to go against our patterns, it's going to go against the beliefs that we hold. But if we're willing and we're brave, it is bravery. You have to say, are we willing to do that? Okay, let's go back in and let's try and shift it. And then it comes again, the next one and the next one. And it's a constant state of things will come up and you'll always just have to, okay, let's be aware of what is happening here. But that's the hardest thing. People, we didn't know. Like, we had no idea why we were feeling such a disconnection or a lack of trust or safety. We weren't lying to each other, we weren't cheating on each other, but we weren't being fully honest or open, and so it was creating that same chemical response that happens.
I think a lot of times it's just there's a dishonesty with self. Recultivating your own relationship with yourself is, number one, asking yourself your own questions of what do I actually want out of relationships? What do I actually want out of this? What am I feeling? Like, what's the end goal? Because I think we don't really ask ourselves enough questions about ourselves because we're always with ourselves. I'm with me, I know me. Like, come on, what do I need to ask? But I don't think we really sit with ourselves and ask. Like, I remember hearing this person, as a psychologist, talk about, like, you know, sit on the edge of your bed and ask yourself, what is the one thing I could do for me? If I would do it, like, what would that be? And just asking yourself. And so I started doing that with me and with her, just that experience of like, what am I doing? Like, why do I have this fake relationship? And what am I, like, because I had to be honest with myself as well. It's just like, I'm manipulating our relationship and be honest about that. Now, am I doing it for a bad reason? Let's be honest about that too. Like, I want love, I want connection, but I am manipulating so that I can get love and connection. Am I going to get that by manipulating? And so just like being really honest and asking those deeper questions to then get to the real, like, I believe fully that we have the answers. It's just we don't ask deep enough to ourselves. I think we constantly, at least for me, was seeking outward information. I went to books like crazy and I was seeking all these answers from these geniuses, supposedly, right? And I think they're wonderful, don't get me wrong. It started me down a path that was amazing for me. But I didn't stop to think, like, what do I have in here? Like, I know me, and there's this subconscious inside of me that I could ask if he believed he could trust me, you know? And so then that's when, like, my speed to, like, the change came from that. You know, I'd get these amazing nuggets when I'd read self-help books and stuff like that. What was funny is they'd usually come to me like weeks before I'd ever see that thing. And I'd be like, oh, this smart guy knows this thing. So you might be right, Todd. You know?
We needed that.
But I needed that affirmation that, like, this smart man who's been in relationships for 20 years or whatever their claim is to empower me to make that change. But up until that point, I'd be like kind of tiptoeing in the water about making this change, you know? And so when I finally, like, caught on to that pattern and just really started getting with me and asking me, like, what do I need? What are my wants? What are my needs? What am I doing? Like, I just think there's such a magic of empowerment in that experience that I didn't know I could do. I didn't believe it. I didn't know that I had that information. It seemed so outside of me. And I think that's one of the most empowering things that we can do for ourselves is realize it's all in here. Like, you have the answers for you if you'll sit with yourself and actually ask.
The irony is, the name of the category is self-help. And yet, like, I so resonate with you, and across multiple dimensions. One is, I rely on the intuitives in my life. Because when I'm disconnected from me, they're like, hey, something's off. And when I'm disconnected from me, then I orient towards the external, right? It's like, let me look at these outside sources to orient me. And what has become so brilliant, especially to practice in relationship, not just theorize. And, so I love ideas, right? But it's like, how can relationship be practiced in the ways that you guys have described, which is whatever this is that we do together actually empowers you in your relationship with self. Because you being strong there is the foundation to whatever we do here. And it sounds like in being able to cultivate awareness of whatever the reality is and having things be mentionable to each other, that allows you to explore into the unknown. Because if you're like, hey, something's wrong here, what's up? And if you're just trying to articulate imperfectly whatever that is, and the other person, because of trauma, triggers, whatever the lens is, can't be equanimous and is triggered, like they disallow you from sharing whatever that is. And it sounds like you're able to cultivate awareness and stand and look at it together. Yeah. And that when things become mentionable, then they are manageable, as the saying goes.
I call it the Voldemort syndrome.
The Voldemort syndrome?
If you speak it out, it loses its power. Yes. So give it a name. Yeah. Like so many times we don't want to speak about something, we don't want to bring it up. Like, I'm mad about the shoes on the floor, I'm going to lose my bloody mind if I see your shoes on the floor.
The whole resentment.
But it has nothing to do with the shoes. Like, I need to bring up what it actually has to do with. Like, I need to speak out the name of the thing that is actually hurting me, making me feel unsafe or making me feel unseen, and speak it out. And if he wants to show up for me, I get to allow him to do that. But if I keep talking about the bloody shoes, that's never going to happen.
In our relationship, we do a dance between like the masculine and the feminine, and a lot of people talk about that and that what they embody and what they are. But like, you know, I always heard men talk about like that experience with a woman where it's like, you know, that they don't want to be told what to do, you know, they just want you to listen. And I think it was kind of like flipped for us in that I was like, she always thought she had to tell me what to do when I came and asked her questions about stuff, but she was like so amazing at, as I brought up, like, here's how you can show up for me, because I didn't know how to have her show up for me. I was just like, I'm just talking, and then it would turn into these fights, you know?
And I've learned this now, I think I can't remember, maybe Brene Brown, but she says when somebody comes to you, and I do this with my kids now, it's the 3 H's. Does this person want to be heard? Do they want to be hugged? Or do they want to be helped? And when you figure out which one it is, and you do that through asking questions, right? You do that through communicating, like, okay, is this just something you want to talk about? Is this just something that you want me to help you solve? Whatever their desire is, that is how I can show up for that person in that conversation. But if I go into each conversation trying to solve this problem, I'm going to come away feeling like I did my job, my saved the day energy kicked in, and that person is going to feel so unseen by me and so unsafe with me, I don't know if they'll come back to me again.
Yeah, and I think especially in our relationship, like I came very fragile. On the exterior, I was like put together and good, you know, but I was just hiding this massive internal fragility that like she was going to break me if she criticized me at all. And so it did create a lot of contention in our relationship, because she would come with this like, well, I can fix that. And I'm like, well, I'm a man, damn it. Like, I don't need you to fix my shit. Like, every time she would try and give me a suggestion, all I heard was a criticism.
And they were really good suggestions.
Because I was so fragile, you know. And she didn't understand. She's just like, what are you talking about? You asked me like to listen to you. Like, what do you want to do here? You know, and I don't think I had the language to say. I just need to talk, because I didn't know myself well enough to realize that's how I process. And I think that's, again, like getting into yourself. Like, how do you process? How do you let your partner be a part of that processing in a way that's actually constructive rather than tearing us apart? And like, we knew we wanted to help each other. She wanted to help, and I wanted her to help, but neither one of us knew how that actually looked or how to actually do that. And so we both, you know, over 10 years of just like struggling through that, really got curious about how can this person show up for me? Mm-hmm. How do they best serve me? And we actually went to a therapist one time that, you know, really helped me to see a lot of a different way to approach things. It's like healthy people know how to ask to get their needs met. You know, and
we went over the shoes. We couldn't figure out the shoe situation, and it was the only time I was like, we have to go see a therapist. We are arguing over these shoes, and we can't figure out what the problem is. Like, I kept, put your shoes away, and I would get so mad and triggered by the fact that he wouldn't put his shoes away or put the dishes in the dishwasher. And so we literally went to a therapist. I was like, I think I have a PTSD with his shoes, and she's like, it's not the shoes. And we were like, what? What do you mean?
But she literally was like, you know, healthy people know how to ask to get their needs met, you know, and so that made me really curious. It's like, what am I not doing to advocate for myself? And I think it's the same way with like the medical field, whatever it is that you're going into, like you truly have to advocate for yourself, because people aren't going to read your mind. It's just like, and we think that they are. And we're like, you don't love me because you don't know how to read my damn mind. It's like, is that really something reasonable to ask of someone else to read your mind? And so I think that's a big part of having a healthy relationship, is recognizing like, she's not going to know unless I'm able to articulate it. And that's where I think language is so important, just like honing that skill to be able to tap into what you're experiencing and then actually be able to articulate that so that that person can be involved in that experience with you. And I think that's really a lot of what's gotten us to be closer together is learning how to communicate, learning how to talk to each other, and to get to the bottom of like what's really going on, what's beyond the shoes, and then what's beyond that, and what's beyond that. Because I think so much of our belief system comes from not getting our needs met as a child, and so I think those things get supplanted deeper and deeper into your subconscious, and it's kind of like Inception, where it's like the dream within a dream within a dream.
17 layers
It's like, I think our subconscious does that, especially when we haven't had our needs met or if we've been through abuse, that it's like, hey, we got to hide this deep, and so we're going to say shoes, and then below shoes, we're going to say you smell. And then below smell, we're going to say something else. And it's going to just go deeper and deeper, but there's something deeper down. And I think as we've learned to trust each other, these depths to which we hide these things don't go as deep. And so we can get to the bottom of our issues a lot quicker. They don't have to be hidden behind these shoes.
It sounds like the practice of learning to listen to you so that you can have a sense of what your needs might be, even articulated imperfectly, and then learning how to advocate, to practice imperfectly sharing that with your partner, and learning on the other end to listen, to let go of like expectations of what this probably is. Like, I know what this is before you say it, and I'm just going to project that. Letting go of that and truly trying to understand that which isn't known yet. That is the mechanism that has been so powerful in each of you being able to peel back those layers and get to the actuality of who you are and who you are together and how you can interface.
Really, it's a lot about remembering, remembering who we are before all that conditioning and before all that programming and before the 17 layers of inception. So much of it is getting still, tapping into your body, getting quiet, and remembering, who am I? Who am I before? Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know how to ask for, you don't know what you want. And if you don't know what you want, you don't know how to ask for your needs to be met. And so it is really saying, who am I before I was told I was too much, I was too big, I was too loud, I was too quiet, I was too whatever. If I erase all of the stories that everybody else told me about me, and I sit and I actually sit with me, who am I, and how do I show up for her? How do I show up for me? Because our most biological need as humans, I think, is belonging. And we do unhealthy patterns of belonging. We want to belong to this group or this religion or this workspace or whatever it is, this club, and we forget that we really just need to find belonging within ourselves. I need to belong to me, he needs to belong to him, and then we can show up as the best, most fully expressed versions of ourselves, and then we can support each other.
I love that you guys have a nursery as well. For me, like when I look at love and my experiences, I realize that I spent a lot of my time as a human believing that love is ownership of, right? So he's my guy, or she is my girl. Yeah, she is my child. He's my whatever. And like that whole my property is what I feel that I got to a point where I replace my property with love, right? And in that space, because it's mine, I have to have control of it, right? No, you are mine, so you cannot be with someone else. Why do you want someone else? You're mine, right? Or no, you're my child and we need to succeed. You need to go into the school because it'll get you there. Instead of stepping back like in a nursery, looking at these beautiful flowers, like planting the seeds and watering and being excited and going, oh, when is it gonna, what's happening tomorrow? What is it, and like going through the process of literally just observing this wonderful thing that you love and care about become. And the wonderful thing is, like in nature, biologically, it's all written in us. The reason that it worked for you to look here instead of there is because you have a coding in your system that knows what brings this joy. And when we follow what is in our coding innately outside of everything and everybody else, we get on this trajectory in sync with each other, in sync with self, in sync with each other, in sync with community, in sync with our, with each other, where we are accelerating towards light and growth and everything that we're meant to be as a part of this wonderful, beautiful ecosystem that is not just the earth. And I think that's something that's actually really crucial, because when we go back in there, we have a wonderful mirror that turns around and says, oh wow, Todd, yeah, of course, that's amazing. I love 1, 2, 3 about you when you're being vulnerable. And by seeing you, that mirror helps you to see yourself. And when she sees you and you see yourself, you show up more, and it goes full circle, and you start literally seeing each other by seeing each other and sharing it with the world together and seeing the world and everybody else in the world. That's why we love being in nature, right? Because it is in sync with it. We are all moving forward, right? That's why we have the nursery. That's why you wanted to bring that wonderfulness to the busyness that we are as we live in this wonderful concrete jungle. Because at the end of the day, when we go in here, we are in sync with what our true identity is and our true mission as we function through this existence that we actually are in.
As a partner, I think that was one of our biggest, at least for me, was one of my biggest struggles was, I think in the beginning of a relationship, at least for me, was I have all these wounds, and I need to manipulate this person to be someone that won't trigger these wounds of mine, that won't stab those deeper. And so, hey, I'm really insecure about X, Y, and Z, so I need you to change those things about you to protect my wound, rather than me owning my wounds and getting over those things. And so a lot of our beginning of our relationship was me doing that to her, and then her doing that to me. And then I think a lot of people end up in that space where they craft their partner into this other thing, and they're like, I don't actually like that person. I've changed everything about them, and they've been willing to do that for me, and I don't like them. I don't think we know how to create a person, and so we're attempting to do it based on wounds. And so, like,
To our horror, we get what we think we want.
Exactly,
and we
right?
ruined it.
And we ruin it. And I think both of us saw that with each other. We had that conversation. One of the most relieving stressors to me was this moment where, I realized that, I recognized that, because it would cause me so much pain. Like, her being an actress, she would be at work, she'd be on set, she'd be out late at night filming something, and I'm laying in bed, I'm like, I'm fine. I'm so confident, I got all the best things, it's wonderful. And then like a certain time would hit, and I'd be like, oh shit, I'm not okay. And I just stress, because she's such a wonderful person. She communicates with everybody. She makes everyone feel special and seen individually. She has this wonderful talent to do it. And a man like me, I'm like, that's flirting,
Fine, that's the same as
And so that would make me stress out because of my wounds. It had nothing to do with her. It was just her being herself. And it's not her fault that she is just this kind human being. That's not a bad thing. I saw it as a bad thing. I made her change that about herself, It's like, you're being flirtatious, you're doing all these things. It's like giving the wrong signals to these guys that's not okay. And instead of me being like, what they think has nothing to do with her. She's just being a human being consistent with who she is on the inside. And I, because of my wounds, said, no, that's flirtation, And so a lot of those things, once I recognized that and realized I'm gonna be babysitting this woman my whole life if I don't let her be her own sovereign being. And how does that make me feel? Well, at night, I feel like crap. I don't feel good doing this to myself. I'm hurting her because she doesn't feel like herself, and I'm hurting me because, 100%. And not true to herself. And so, being able to let that go is hey, I trust that we will be okay no matter what. Us being ourselves is gonna be okay. And if it's not, let's get there as quick as we possibly can. No, seriously though.
Yeah.
Like that was what I came
You
to.
chose to go through.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, just show me you. Like, and if we don't like it, like let's make that decision at that point. But like, let's at least show who we really are, so then we can make those decisions. And I think, you know, there's like a saying that, like, you know, to have a long-term relationships, to witness 1,000 funerals and 1,000 rebirths, and like that's been so beautiful to watch. You know, it's just like us killing those old versions of ourselves to see what comes out of that. And each time, I'm always just like, shit, she's fucking awesome. She's amazing.
On the other side of that rebirth
Yes.
is a version that
Which is,
of the
I
relationship
had no
where
idea
there's deeper love.
how good that could be.
and it's
you know?
scary. And if you don't push through it, then you stay like, when he brought this up to me and we worked through this, it was almost like he took me as this doll and wanted to put me up on the shelf. So nobody else could play with the toy and nobody else could see the toy. And the toy slowly starts to lose its light and lose its shininess.
Because it's not a
and
toy, it's a plant. that needs
And I
light
was
and
wither.
sun.
I would wither. I felt myself dimming my light or withering and diminishing who my soul was because I wanted to belong to him. And so that we had our programming wrong, right? I didn't belong to me and I wasn't a sovereign being. I wanted to belong to him. I wanted to make him happy. Something was hurting his feelings and I wanted to dim whatever that was to make him feel more safe. And until again that awareness comes in and it's like, oh, this is what we're doing. And all of those things that he was trying to get me to stop doing were all the things that he loved about me in the first place. And so a lot of times we have these friends who've been married for so many years and they wake up and they're like, I don't even know who this person is. And I think, because you asked her to change everything about herself so you could feel safe. So at some point you need to give her permission to be who she was, and you need to give yourself permission to be who you are. And you have to risk that during this next death, that if nothing changes if there isn't a loss or there isn't a death of something, right? That's how the growth happens. And it's really scary because it might actually not work out the way that you want.
Yeah.